Greetings, guys and ghouls, and welcome back to the podcast where we talk about all things spooky, dial H for horror. I am your ghostess with the most, Shay.
And I am your favorite final girl, Gina.
All right, so we've got a good movie for you today.
Yes, we do.
Talk about. I'm really excited about this movie. So before we get into the movie, full transparency, there is a trigger warning. There is SA. I'm not going to say the word. I'll put like a text thing to write it out, but I'm not going to say it because we will get demonetized, even though we're not monetized, but we will get in trouble. There's SA in this movie, and it's unavoidable. We have to talk about it. So if that bothers you, I'll have it timestamped. You can skip ahead to our next section. But I just figured I'd let you guys know that before we got into the movie. So before we get into the movie, I just wanted to also talk about the fact that I'm really excited that we're doing an anime movie today because I love anime.
Absolutely. It's a good change of pace too.
It is, yeah. I especially love horror themed anime. That's like one of my favorite things. Funnily enough, we were at a concert last night and I wore a Tokyo Ghoul shirt.
Yes, you did.
I wore a Tokyo Ghoul shirt. Tokyo Ghoul was sort of my reintroduction back into anime after like many years of not watching anime. My favorite anime is Jujutsu Kaisen, and then my other favorite anime is Attack on Titan, which both have very strong elements of horror involved in them. And then, of course, I've talked last week about the Junji Ito show and manga. So I'm really into anime, so this was like a big, exciting thing for me to do a movie that was a horror movie that was also anime. So what about you? What do you think about anime?
I mean, I definitely was into it a lot. Years past, I've kind of like fallen off of the path a bit now. My favorite and one that I could definitely turn on at any time is Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball, classic.
Yeah, I love Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. Basically every iteration of the series, or I mean, I definitely watched a lot of anime as a kid. And, in my teen years, early adulthood, I don't know why I stopped. I think I just got busy and it just wasn't something that was like easily accessible in my rotation anymore. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, let me just look at something on Netflix. And then I go on Netflix and it's like, ooh, some new trashy show is out. Let me watch that, So I think that's just all that happened is ain't nothing personal to anime.
Nothing personal to anime. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the same thing that happened to me for a long time. Yeah. Like, I was really into anime in high school. Like, I loved, like, Cowboy Bebop, Lupin the Third, Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha. Inuyasha was my first animated crush. I loved Inuyasha. And then, like, after I graduated high school, I watched, a little bit more anime. I watched, like, Death Note and things like that. And then it was, like, all of a sudden, I got busy, I got older, and I just, like, you had no way more limited access than you have to anime now. Because now we have anime on Netflix, Hulu,
exactly.
It's everywhere. And then it was just, like, over pandemic, over lockdown, that's kind of when I got back into anime and I started watching, like, I started with Tokyo Ghoul was right before lockdown. I started watching, and then I moved on to Demon Slayer, which is like one of my absolute favorite animes, and I'm like super happy with this recent season that just came out. And then after that, I happened to stumble upon Jujutsu Kaisen, and then it just took over my life. And it's like absolutely, like, if you know me, I mean, we went to a horror con last weekend, and I found the one booth that had Jujutsu Kaisen merch. That is how obsessed I am with Jujutsu Kaisen. Found the one booth. So that's kind of like my big thing with anime. So I really enjoy anime. And
it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think right now of other ones I've watched. I've definitely watched many. I'm more of a slice of life anime person more than anything. So if anyone out there has ever watched Usagi Drop, I like that one. I was really a big fan of Clannad and what was the other one where the girl died and then all of her friends saw her little ghost? Oh, it was so sad.
I know the one anime I liked that was more, I don't know if it was considered slice of life, but it was more like, it wasn't horror, was oh my gosh, Himoto Umaru-chan. I liked that one with the girl
yeah.
that was like perfect
Yeah.
when she would leave the house, and she'd come back home and she'd shrink down to this little like monster. Essentially, she'd be like eating all the snacks and like rolling around on the floor playing video games. I was like, I think I cosplayed as her when I went to a con, like because it was easy cosplay. It's just like a white shirt, like pink pants, and then like the hamster. I still have the hamster blanket. It's super comfortable.
There you go.
Super comfortable.
Yeah, that one was a really cute show too.
Yeah, adorable, absolutely. But we're not here to talk about something adorable. We are here to talk about Perfect Blue, which is a really good movie. All right, so Perfect Blue is a Japanese animated psychological thriller based on the novel Perfect Blue: Complete Metamorphosis. It was released first on August 5th, 1997 at the Fantasia Festival in Montreal, where it received critical acclaim. It then received a wider release in Japan on February 28th, 1998. It has since become a cult classic within the J-horror community. It's the directorial debut of Satoshi Kon, who, fun fact for all you anime nerds out there, worked on episode 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I know some of y'all are going to love that. Also, apologies if I butcher any of these names. I'm going to try my best to pronounce everything correctly. So, the movie opens up with a pop group by the name of Cham coming to perform a show. If you pay close attention to the audience, you'll notice it's all men going to watch them perform. That's very important to the theme of this movie. As we see the group getting ready, we are informed through flashbacks that this is one of the members, Mima Kirigore, her last show with the group. Her agent, Mr. Tadakoro, has decided that Mima is more marketable as an actress, despite her whole reason for being in Tokyo was that she wants to sing. Something her manager, former pop idol Rumi Hidaka, points out frequently throughout the film.
Yes.
So, first of all, the song they sing absolutely slaps. I was like, this song was stuck in my head for like the rest of the day, and I was really mad because it's nowhere to be found. Like, you can't listen to it on Spotify or anything.
Oh, that's sad.
I was very sad. The only thing I could find was an English cover of it that wasn't very good.
Oh,
that wasn't very
okay.
Good. I absolutely love the song. The group is like, they're very girly, you know, they got like their little tutus on and they're out there singing, but it's very obvious that their audience is mostly grown adult men. So while they're performing, they pan around the crowd a lot. You see everybody like cheering for them.
Yeah.
There's this guy who's like a security guard, I think, and I kind of called him Leatherface throughout the movie till we learned his name because he looked like Leatherface.
Yeah, they like purposely made him look very creepy.
Mm-hmm. He's like literally at one point looking through his hand, like he's holding Mima in the palm of his hand. And you know, he's just, you know, it's just weird. It's unsettling. The men are talking about the girls like their property essentially, and it's just all weird. At the end of their song, Mima steps up to announce that she is leaving the group, and you know, while she's making this announcement, there's something flies on stage at her, and you see that there's these 4 guys who are like chucking trash at the stage, and they've apparently done this before at other shows.
Rowdy boys. They are a bunch of rowdy boys, and security guard Leatherface man does not like the rowdy boys.
He does not. So a confrontation ensues that ends up in a pretty intense fight. The whole crowd starts to just like go nuts.
Yeah, they're all throwing trash at rowdy boys. Boys.
It's pretty much like Open Up the Pit at a Cham concert.
Like, yeah, dude.
Circle pit. And the girls are rushed off stage. They go backstage, and then Mima goes off to start her new life as an actress. Yes. Before she leaves, they're walking out of their agency, and you know, there's a bunch of guys lined up outside, like, you know, telling them that they love them. And then somebody hands her this like pink envelope, and it's with all of her other mail and everything like that. And she's like, okay, this is great. This is wonderful. She gets home. You know, she lives in a pretty modest home. It shows that she's like, you know, doesn't really take care of her fish all that well. You know, her one pet that she has doesn't really take care of them all that well.
But she's sorry to them.
She's sorry.
She did say, I'm sorry for not feeding you yesterday.
Yes. So she then opens like her the note, and she reads it, and it's like this kind of creepy-ish note that ends with like a message about there being a website called Mima's Room.
Yes.
And she's like, okay, don't care about that. She then proceeds to go about her day, and then she gets a call from her mom. She's talking to her mom. It's a nice little phone call. She gets one of those like beep calls that come in. So she's like, hold on, I got somebody on the other line. She switches to the other line, and it's just somebody breathing. And she's like, that's strange.
Yeah.
That's suspicious. She, like, goes back to her mom. She's like, must be the wrong number, you know? She kind of brushes that off a little too easily.
In the wind.
Brushes it off a little too easily. She does it a lot in this movie in the beginning, and I'm like, girl, you brushing things off way too easy. I'd be a little bit more suspicious than that.
And she just has too much faith in the world, I think.
She does, yeah. So then after that, she gets off the phone, she's doing her thing, and then she hears the phone ring again, which turns out to be her fax machine, which kind of dates this movie, because who uses fax machines really anymore? And she goes and she looks, and as the fax is coming up, it says the word traitor in Japanese.
All over it.
In different fonts, different sizes. It's like, you know, very dark and scary. Yeah. Then we cut to her on the set of her first TV show, which is called Double Bind, which is like a crime thriller show.
It's giving Law and Order.
Yeah. So like, she's supposed to be playing like the sister of the victim, and like she has a very small role, like a very small role. And so like Mr. Tadakoro is like her agent is like trying to get her a bigger role. So he's going to the writer who's named Mr. Shibuya, and he's like, hey, you've got like Mima from Chom, like you need to use her.
Yeah.
Like, and like the writer's like, I don't know, because pop stars really can't act. Like he's kind of got that like,
he's like, listen, I have like an established show going for me here, and I'm not about to just go ahead and like have a few bad episodes just to maybe jumpstart someone's career in acting.
Exactly. So, you know, she has a very small role, but she's like, you know, into it. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna nail these 3 words I have to say, which is, who are you?
She was working on the words.
So then one of the like assistants comes up to give one of the main actresses her fan mail, and as it turns out there's another pink letter there that happens to be addressed to Mima. So they're like, oh, this is Mima's, here you go. And then like Mima goes to take it, but then Tadakoro is just like, oh no, I gotta go film, you know, you gotta do your thing. So she goes on to the set, they get ready to film, and as she's getting ready to say her big line, who are you, you hear an explosion. And it turns out that there was a letter bomb that blew up in Tadakoro's hands, which I wasn't quite sure what the extent of his injuries were.
Right, because then afterwards they were kind of like, oh, he's fine. He didn't have that bad of injuries. I'm like, dude, his hands were bloody.
Yeah, his hands were covered in blood. It looked like, you know, it just looked like he was having a rough time. So
I was like, I'm never opening mail again.
Yeah, it was very scary. Like, he just opened the letter, and like, you know, obviously it was clearly meant for Mima, but you know, Tadakoro had taken it, and then she reads the letter, and it says the next one will be real. So meaning like next time you get one of these, it's gonna actually like kill you.
Yeah.
Which is very dark and very scary. And again, something that Mima just kind of like is like, she's like, I'm not that worried about it.
No, it's just, these things happen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't mean it.
So Rumi helps Mima set up her first ever computer. Side note, it made me laugh when Mima mentioned she knew nothing about the internet. Seeing how far we've come from 1997, the internet was available but a rare thing, to now me being able to load up a streaming service and watch this movie, make that comment, was amusing. After Rumi leaves, Mima heads to a website that sends you to sites about other pop idols. She goes to Mima's room, which is basically a fan site set up for her, and reads, quote-unquote, her diary. This person who is posting as her, and at first, Mima seems too cool with that. Until Mima reads them posting things they couldn't possibly know, like what brand of milk she was buying. Soon, Mima becomes unnerved, believing that the fax, the letter bomb, and Mima's room are all connected somehow. Little does she know, she's only scratching the surface of this bizarre story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's just circle back. Mima was way too cool with that.
She was really chill with just like someone like pretending to like write entries from her diary online.
Yeah, I was a little unnerved by that, because I'm like watching this movie and she's just like, oh yeah, she's writing about like she's writing as me, but she's writing about my show. And I'm like, no, if I read that, I would be like, okay, I'm just gonna like go off the grid. I don't even want to be an actress anymore. Just get me out of here. People are weird. I
would be calling my manager and being like, we need to take this down. Like,
yes,
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about this too much out of a 2023 brain and not a 1997 brain.
I guess
we weren't too aware of the internet and the dangers of the internet.
That's true. That's a good point. Like, yeah, at that point, she's not really aware like we are now, where we have like that literacy of the dangers of the internet. Like, she didn't really have that back then, so that makes sense. But I was just like, even still, like, it just was giving stalker. I would have
been creeped.
It was giving stalker.
I would have been creeped out for sure. It shows her how naive she is.
Yes, which is a very big character point for Mima,
Yeah.
and it's something that's charming, and it's also her downfall in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So after this, Mr. Tadokoro's like, I don't know what you would call it, his negging, like actually makes Mr. Shibuya go, okay, we're gonna give Mima a bigger part, but the part we're gonna give her is involving a very graphic R word scene. And so Tadokoro brings this up to Rumi and Mima, and Rumi loses her mind. She's like, absolutely not. She's not doing that scene. Nope, I don't care. She came here to be a singer. We're not exploiting this young woman. We're not doing it. And Rumi was like, I was like cheering for Rumi at this point.
Yeah,
I was like, put your foot down.
Yeah, she's protecting her, like, you know, she's protecting Mima.
Protecting Mima, you know, a young girl who's basically being exploited. It's like,
yes,
your manager your agent goes to this guy to get you a bigger role, and he's like, okay, I'll give you a bigger role, but I'm going to exploit the crap out of you because you're attractive.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that is just ugh. And then of course Mima, who has been feeling this enormous amount of pressure to make this change work, because we didn't really talk about it, but in the beginning of the movie when they're doing the flashbacks and they're showing Tadokoro and Rumi have these conversations about Mima's career change, Mima doesn't look like she wants it.
No.
She's sitting there looking sad and like defeated. So it's like you can tell this is something that Tadokoro is pushing, because Rumi doesn't even want it. Rumi's like, she's a pop idol.
Yeah, like this is what she does.
This is what she does. This is what she came here for. Like this is who
her
she
dream.
is.
She's successful.
Yeah. And Tadokoro was like, she'll be better as an actress. So you can feel throughout this, up to this point in the movie, that like Mima really wants to make this work, because basically she has this man behind her telling her that like she has to do this. She has to do this. So he's telling her about this violent scene she has to do, and Rumi is like losing her mind. You can't do it. No. Mima's like, I'll do it. It's not like it's real. And it's kind of like, okay.
Like, everyone was like, you sure?
You positive. You positive you want to do this. So, they get to go film that scene, and it's a scene where Mima is an exotic dancer.
Yes. And
of course, the men decide to take advantage of her. And it was very hard to watch the scene, not just for the obvious reasons, but because they're filming the scene. It's not supposed to be real.
You're seeing the
behind the
scenes of the scene you're watching, so it feels real in the moment with everything going on. And then they would just cut. They would scream cut, and then everybody stops what they're doing. The actor who's doing this to her is like apologizing to her, and he looks visibly shaken by what he has to do. And she's just like, it's okay. And like you could just see she's numb. And like then even when he goes to actually do it, like they stop him and they're like, you have to move faster. And it's like, you know, and you can tell again, he's like visibly shaken, like he doesn't want to do this, but it's like, this is my job, I have to do this. So then it gets to the part where it's very graphic, and Rumi gets up, leaves the room in tears, and that's like the last time you see her for a while in the movie. Like she kind of vanishes at this point. And Mima, even though she's filming the scene, you can see like that she's having a psychotic break at this point. The room starts spinning, everything is really intense, and she's just having a psychotic break. And then the best part about that is that after the scene's done filming, it just switches to a scene where she's just happy. She's just like, oh, thank you so much for like recording. Like thank you guys so much. You guys all did a great job. I'm like, wow, the tonal shift. For a pizza party afterwards.
Like, the tonal shift, it just flipped.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mima is definitely not okay, because she gets on the train and she starts seeing her reflection as herself in Cham.
Yes.
And she is like, basically like her reflection is like taunting her.
So like telling her that she's you know, like a tarnished woman. And that
you're tarnished, you're dirty, you're you're nasty. So she starts to freak out a little bit, because she's like, what is going on? What's going on with me? Why is this happening? Then we move into I also forgot to mention, Leatherface is pretty much at every single taping. Leatherface is pretty much at every single taping.
How are they letting him in for any of this? Like, I don't know.
Like, I thought he was just a security guard at that one concert, but he's just everywhere.
He's just the security guard of Tokyo, I guess. It's like, Leatherface is here, let him in.
He's the only security guard.
Only one.
So then after this, there is this really great, this is when we finally get our first kill of the movie.
Yes.
Mr. Shibuya is walking through a parking garage and he hears the song that Chom was singing in the beginning of the movie playing. And it's just in the distance. And it's, like far away. He's walking around. He's like, what the heck is going on? Like, looking around. He gets to the elevator opens, and there's just a boombox playing this song, like blaring it. And he's like, uh-huh. Then the next shot we get, it cuts away. The doors are closed. They open, and Mr. Shibuya is laying covered in blood with his eyes missing.
Yes.
So somebody killed Mr. Shibuya for exploiting Mima.
Yeah, that was the point in the movie where I was like, oh, okay, I see where we're going now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so now you have like a warrior that's, taking out these people that are harming Mima.
Yes.
So then the next thing is that Mima has to do a photo shoot. And you see Chom, it's kind of like a juxtaposition where you see Chom getting ready to do their first duo performance, which they're actually doing really well as a duo.
They're very successful.
They're making the charts. Their song is really popular. That song was also a bop.
Yes, it was. They made it on the top 100.
Yeah, they made it on top 100. They placed 83, which is like the highest they got, which is good, for like however long they've been doing it. So as you see Chom getting ready, they're talking about her Mima's photo shoot with Mr. Murano is this guy, and they're talking about how he's a very exploitative photographer and how he will make women do things that they're not necessarily comfortable with to get good shots.
Yeah.
And then it switches back to Mima getting ready for this photo shoot, and we see the progression of like him telling her to pose cute. She's in like a big oversized shirt in her underwear underneath, and she's like posing and she's all cute and all seductive, and then he starts telling her to take off more layers of clothing and more layers of clothing until she's completely naked. And he's just having her do all these poses that are just like, why would an actress need to do those poses unless she's a certain type of actress?
Yes.
Which she is not, and you can tell that's not what they're trying to go for with her, but they're just exploiting her at this point. So, Mima is just going along with it. She's just going along with it. She's, doing what he wants her to do, and then you go back and forth between her and Chom performing on stage. But while they're performing on stage and they're singing the song, we see Mima walk out on stage and start singing the song with them. And they look very concerned and confused. Why is Mima here?
She does a little skip out on the stage because everywhere she goes, she's skipping. Chom Mima.
Yeah,
there we go.
Skipping. She's kind of like, she's so cute. And she comes out and she starts singing with them, and Chom is just confused. They're like, what's going on here? Why are you here? So clearly this is something that they're seeing. Yeah. They're seeing this. So you're like, okay, what the heck is going on at this point in the movie? Like, there's two Mimas? Like, does Mima have an evil twin? Like,
I'm happy you said that because when I was watching it, I actually wasn't sure if they're seeing her. And I'm like, well, why would their faces look a bit creeped out? I'm like, maybe I'm reading too much into the scene and going back and forth with it. Yeah.
No, but so we get to see that performance with Chom and quote unquote Mima. So, as Mima is starting to lose herself, the movie makes us question what is real. Mima is caught in the loop, waking up at random points during her days, getting caught off guard while filming scenes for Double Bind, waking up in her apartment to find Rumi at the door thinking it's the same day, even seeing herself sitting at a table with her former bandmates as they do a radio show. It's clear that all the stress and uncertainty in Mima's life, coupled with the terrifying image of herself haunting her, has caused Mima's psyche to fail her. We then cut to a scene with the creepy photographer, Murano, going to grab a pizza he ordered at his front door. When the pizza delivery guy drops something on the floor, Murano bends to pick it up, only to be met with a blade to the eye. He has followed through his home, being repeatedly stabbed until the hat falls off the pizza guy and reveals that it's Mima who's killing him. So, that was like an intense moment.
It really was.
I was like, oh, the hat came off, and I was like, Mima, you okay?
I was like, what?
And then I was also like, I mean, what?
I was like,
he made you take your clothes off. At this point, whatever happens.
Yeah, I was weirded out at first that it was her, but then I was just kind of like, you know what? I mean, I don't blame you.
Exactly.
I'm like, pop off.
Exactly. So then Mima wakes up after this whole ordeal, and she is like, woken up by the sound of her phone ringing, and Tadokuro is calling her to be like, did you hear the news? And she's like, what news?
Yeah.
And she turns on the TV, and it says that Murano was found dead, same way that Mr. Shibuya was found dead. His eyes are gone. And she starts to panic because she remembers dreaming that she killed him. So she's going through her room and she sees a bag in the corner, and in the bag is the bloody clothes, the bloody pizza uniform. So at this point, she's like fully having a psychotic break because she's like, I killed somebody.
Yes.
I'm, like what the heck is going on?
Yeah, like what am I? Oh my god. I mean, yeah. At this point in the movie, I was getting really confused here.
Yeah. I was too.
Yeah.
I was too. It was very confusing. And then it starts to get even more confusing because it starts to amp up like the switching of scenes.
Yes.
And then it seems like the movie ends because all of a sudden we see Mima in a mental institution and she's talking to the actress who she'd been filming all the scenes with for Double Bind. And the actress is asking her what her name is, and she's saying, it's Mima Kirigore. And they're like, that's not who you are. That's not your name. And like, then they go off and they say she seems to think that she's a pop star.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so she's like, she got like DID, she got dissociative identity disorder. And they even mention that they say that she has that. And I'm going, okay. And then they run that whole scene back, and all of a sudden, Mima is saying somebody else's name. She's saying like Yoko or something, and then they say that she thinks she's a model, and then you see that they're filming Double Bind. They're still filming it.
It's such a trip. I won't lie. Here and like as this whole part's happening, where like scenes are rapidly changing, I was getting frustrated as a viewer.
Yeah,
I was getting mad.
Yeah, it was really trippy.
Yeah.
So then we like after they finish filming the scene, they're like, okay, the show is done. We've revealed the killer, so now we can move on with our day.
Yeah.
Mima, you did a great job. Thanks. They ended up giving her a bigger role where she turned out to be the killer in that show.
Yes.
So she's like, all right, cool, awesome. She gets ready to leave, and Rumi and Mr. Tadakoro go outside. Tadakoro's like, I'm gonna go. Like, you take Mima home when she's done. And Rumi's like, all right, cool. So Mima is grabbing her stuff, and as she's getting her stuff, we see Leatherface suddenly appear out of the darkness.
It's like, well, that's a weird crossover. I remember you calling him Leatherface.
And earlier in the movie, we do learn that he actually goes by the moniker of Me-Mania, because we see the other Mima sending him emails and talking to him and saying, like, you have to save me. You have to save me from all the bad things that imposter is doing, which is actual Mima.
Yeah.
All the bad things. So you have to like save me from this. So Me-Mania believes that the real Mima is an imposter and that the Mima that's been emailing him is the real Mima.
Yeah.
So he shows up there with the intention to brutalize Mima. Yeah. And this is where we get our second like attempted R-word scene.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm just kind of like, but why did you have to do that? Why don't you just like kill her?
Exactly.
Like that made no sense.
This just felt unnecessary.
It just felt unnecessary because it's like, wouldn't you, as somebody who loves Mima so much, why would you violate like somebody that looked like Mima? Like you want to protect her purity. You would just kill the
that
other,
seems
the
to
imposter.
Be the draw that all these men have towards her, and the draw of the group she was in, the Chom group, and everything, is that they like the purity of these girls. Yeah. So it didn't make sense for him specifically to do that when his character is so against all of the exploitation that's going on.
Exactly.
Throughout the movie.
But Mima stops it dead in its tracks by grabbing a hammer and just whacking him in the side of the head as hard as possible. She basically pulled a Leatherface on him. Mm-hmm. She pulled a Leatherface on him.
She Bob the Buildered him.
She knocked him out, and then they proceed to have a fight, and she gets the better of him. She thinks she killed him, and she leaves, and she finds Rumi, and Rumi's like, what's going on? She tells her, this man attacked me, he tried to kill me. She changes her clothes, because her clothes are all ripped up and everything. They get to the stage where he was laying dead and he's gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, Me-Mania is still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
So Rumi's like, I'm just going to take you home at this point.
Yeah, she's like, you seem like you've been through a lot. Because even up until she went to go change originally, before she was attacked, you could tell that she was just out of it.
Yeah.
Like, she just was drained from so much that was going on.
And she ends up passing out on the way home.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming up to the end of the movie now. So this is going to be a long block of text I'm going to be reading to you. All right, so Mima wakes up after arriving home and calls to Rumi, who's in the other room. When she looks around, she notices that something isn't right. While the room looks like her bedroom, Mima starts to question if it is. She looks out the window and is hit with the realization that it's definitely not her house. It's Rumi's. We get a quick shot of both Tadokoro and Mimania dead and eyeless like the men before them before we get the reveal of the real killer. Mima steps in the room with Mima. She's dressed in a red tutu outfit with white stockings and gloves. Except she's not Mima at all. She's Rumi. Rumi has been cosplaying as Mima, writing the diary entries in Mima's room, and killing all the men who dared to objectify Mima Kirigore. They begin to fight, and the fight takes them all over the neighborhood, which, by the way, how did nobody see this going on? They were fighting, like, all over the neighborhood, and no one saw this. It's like, hey, let's call the cops. This girl is just, like, chasing this other girl.
Too. She's
I know. She's screaming, she's bleeding, like, you know, I know it's the middle of the night, but still. We get an amazing shot of Mima, quote unquote, floating behind Mima daintily, but in the window of the building, you see reality. Rumi running after her, panting and sweating like a beast in her desperation to become the only Mima. When the real Mima gets the better of Rumi, she pushes her into the road. Rumi realizes a truck is coming and stands to accept her fate, but Mima pushes her out of the way to safety, saving her antagonist's life. The movie ends with Mima at a mental hospital visiting Rumi, who is still suffering from dissociative identity disorder and believes she's Mima. As she leaves the hospital, nurses gossip about seeing famous actress Mima Kirigore at the hospital, but claim that it must not be the real her because why would she go there? When Mima gets into the car, she takes off her sunglasses and looks into the mirror while saying, "No, I'm real." And we get some banging music to close out the film. And that's the end of Perfect Blue. Yes.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel about that reveal?
It's kind of funny because at the very beginning of the movie, I was like, what if it ends up being this chick? Because she seems really passionate about about Mima. Mm-hmm. And then it ended up actually being that. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was kind of cool and a little satisfying because I never call an ending.
Nice.
I'm someone who never is able to do that. So it was like a cool feeling that it actually happened. I don't know. The movie took me on a roller coaster. And even at this point right now, I'm still trying to decide like how I feel about this movie as a whole. Mm-hmm. I was so frustrated with all of the scene changes and everything in the middle of the movie, and I know what they were trying to do, but it made it a very difficult watch for me, the viewer. I like when things, I'm okay with things not making sense in a movie and then it all coming together in the end, but I struggled because I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching anymore. Like, I don't, I as a viewer can't believe anything I'm seeing on the screen, and maybe that was the point of it, technically, but I became frustrated. But then after watching the movie and like having time to think about it some more, then I was kind of going back and forth of, for most of the day today, I thought she had she was paranoid, and we were watching like the extent of her paranoia and her going into that kind of like hysteria with it. Which as you know, I recently had my own situation with paranoia.
which was a little bit more comical than this situation because it wasn't like, you know, people harming you.
Yeah, well, that's just the thing. It's a yes and no. I didn't quite tell you everything that was going on in my mind when I had reached the peak of my paranoid state that I was personally in. But I drew a lot of similarities to what was going on with Mima when I started like reassessing things, and how I myself, I realized, I'm not self-diagnosing at all. I want to make sure that's clear. But it was just like, for a very long time up until right now, I could see myself like, oh, that paranoia was growing this whole time. And the movie helped me to kind of like see that and read that little line within myself. And I guess I just had I was able to connect to it a bit more just because I recently had my own thing happen. But so I started to appreciate that point of the movie more. I'm like, okay, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, and I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like when nothing makes sense and you don't know what's real. And like, that's really cool. That they were able to capture it so well. And I don't know. I'm still like, I feel weird about the movie, but enjoyed the ride more now, like looking back at it.
Yeah.
But the reveal at the end it's a good reveal.
It's a good reveal.
I'm really happy that that's what they chose, that it wasn't just, at the end of the day, the men are definitely the villains of the story, but there is something totally different going on, and that's why we couldn't so easily piece this whole thing together throughout the whole ride of the movie.
Absolutely.
I'll stop rambling.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, it's okay. It's okay. I think personally for me, like the jumping around didn't bother me too much. I think it's because I'm a very big J-horror fan, and I'm used to J-horror sometimes taking you on the craziest rides you've ever been on. You know, sometimes you watch these movies and you're like, hold on, especially when it's in a different language and you don't know what they're saying. You're just like, hold on, I gotta sit back. The thing I liked about this movie, and it was something I really wanted to talk about after I watched it, was as somebody who's a huge fan of K-pop. I've loved K-pop for a long time now. My biggest thing is the exploitation of the idols. And when I watched this movie, and especially the women in K-pop, when I watched this movie, I know this is a different country, but it still is the same. Like, J-pop has it too, and like, the thing about J-pop is like, I've read about the way the men in Japan act about female idols, and it's nightmarish. It's nightmarish. Like, I could never imagine being a pop star in Japan, being a female pop star in Japan, because they think they own you. Yeah. Like, they have gone to women's houses after they've announced they're getting married and tried to harm their husbands. Like, that's how crazy these guys are. Like, they think, no. And then they talk about you like you're impure, you're dirty. Like, you could be like, I'm getting married. And they're like, that's dirty. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, how is that dirty? I'm getting married. Like, I met somebody and I love them. And they're like, no, that's dirty.
Have this image where they want to, like, this person needs to stay in this innocent, childlike state forever.
Exactly. And, like, for me, one of my biggest things, like, you know, I love BTS. Yeah. I've had a huge problem with the direction that they've taken the group in the last few years, because now that they're marketing them towards a younger audience, they have these grown men who are nearly in their 30s, and they're treating them like they're little teenage boys, like they're like 15, 16. So then when they step outside of themselves and act like adults, their teenage audience is like, you can't do that. Yeah. You're a kid. You can't do that. And there's like, he's like 30. Yeah. Like, he's like a 30-year-old man. Like, he can drink. He can go out. Like, not that they go out, but like, he can go out. He can drink. He can say bad words. He can dance like suggestively, you know, like, you know, and that's the problem with, you know, and I know it happens in America too. I know it happens. I know we've talked about Britney Spears, you know, like, that was the big thing, like, the last couple of years, talking about Britney Spears and the exploitation of women, and staying focused on women here. The reason why I like this movie so much is because it handled that exploitation of women so well, to a point where, like, at the end, the villain being a female made sense. Yeah. The main villain of the movie being a female made sense. Like, I would have been fine if it had ended up being Me Mania, and that's who I just thought it was the entire time, because like, they set that up like it's Me Mania. Like, I didn't think, there's a plot twist, you know, like, I didn't think that. But when it was revealed that it was Rumi, I was like, that makes sense, because she's trying to protect somebody that she sees as innocent and as the antithesis of what women should be. Yes. So when she sees a woman giving into all these male desires, she's like, no, I have to take that back, because you can't do that. And it's also, Rumi was a pop idol herself, who it's heavily implied that she didn't do well, probably because of the weight, because she is a chunkier girl, that she didn't do well and she didn't make it, that she might even feel some trepidation that she's trying to live vicariously through Mima. This is who she wants to be. This is who she ever always wanted to be as a pop idol. And then Mima's like, I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to do this violent scene. I'm going to take my clothes off for a camera. And she's like, no, that's not what we do. Like, we're innocent. We're sweet. We dance. We sing like happy songs and dance. And like, I loved that. Like, I loved that about this movie, because I didn't know what to expect going into it. Like, I had only known like the bare minimum, that it was like a pop idol that leaves being a pop idol and then goes on to do something else, and weird stuff starts happening. That's all I knew. Yeah. And it was nice going into this knowing nothing, because I feel like, because I knew nothing, it was a ride. Like you said, it was a roller coaster. And that made me enjoy the movie a lot more. The scene flipping didn't bother me too much. The only time it bothered me was when it did that bait and switch ending, where it made you think the movie was ending, and
that pissed me off.
then the whole thing was like in Mima's head, and I was like, come on, no, that can't be the real ending. And then when they like rolled it back, I was like, oh, okay, thank you, because I was about to be like, man, this movie sucks.
I honestly, if I'm to say what really pissed me off with the scene changes and everything, if I just had to watch that girl wake up in that bed one more time, I was gonna freak out. I'm like, how many times are y'all gonna use this one like set of stills that you have drawn?
It just seemed like the animators were like, we don't want to animate anything else. We don't want
to do anything else, so we're just gonna have her wake up in the bed again. And I'm like, oh my god, no, I can't do the whole a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. Like,
it was giving Butterfly Effect for me a little bit at that part. Like, I was like, it was like reminding me of that movie Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher, which I hate that movie. But, like I said, it was a movie for me that like I just really appreciated the message behind it, and I also appreciated the message about identity, because at the end of the movie it's almost implied that Mima's sort of flourished. I mean, the last shot of the movie the last like scene of the movie takes place a year after everything happened, and she is flourishing. Like, she seems to be somebody who's maybe made a name for herself, and it kind of sucks that she had to do all of that sus stuff to get respect. And that's another thing that I think the movie like shines a light on, is like the things women have to do, and the things they have to put themselves through to be like a celebrity. They have to sometimes degrade themselves, they have to sometimes push themselves down and do things they're not comfortable with, so that they can get to the point where they can make demands. And it seems like Mima's getting to that point, and then her owning her identity at the end by saying, looking in the mirror and going, no, I'm real. Like, I'm real. Like, this is me. Like, those people can say I'm fake. I'm the fake Mima all I want, but I'm real.
Like, I know who I am, and that's all that matters to me. Also, with the reveal at the end, I meant to say this earlier, it gave some Selena vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it gave strong Selena vibes.
Yep. And that's that's a whole other bag of cats.
Exactly.
That's a whole other bag of cats.
Not to dive too much into that, but it was something I felt during that chase scene. I was like, oh, yeah.
It really did. So, all right. So, how would you rate this movie for the skull rating?
Oh God, I've been going back and forth with this all day long today, just trying to decide what is the rating I'm going to give this. I'm going to give it 4.5. I'm going to give it 4.5, which is way better than what it started at when I first finished watching this movie. Because I got to a point where I was yelling when I was watching it. And I was like, for every time she wakes up in this bed, the movie will lose a skull.
Oh my god! Every time she wakes up, she loses a skull.
But to for everything that I was doing, for the time that it was made into, and the commentary that it had on problems that are still extremely prevalent today, there's really been no real traction on any of those, no real improvements.
Especially in Asia.
Yeah.
Especially in Asia.
The movie really still stands on its own 2 feet, and it really it creates good conversation today that should be had. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the movie for what it is.
Yeah.
If I ever were to watch it again, though, I'll probably just skip that whole
montage. The montage of her waking up in bed.
Well, what would you give it?
I was going to say the same thing, 4.5 skulls. So 4.5 out of 5 skulls. First of all, I love head trip movies. I love movies that make you think. We talked about that last week when we talked about Saint Maud. Movies that leave you with something to think about and something to discuss amongst yourselves, or with with your friends, with your family, whoever watched it. So this one I really appreciated it. Plus the added bonus of like me being a music person who loves J-pop, K-pop, like, Asian pop in general, and knows a lot about those industries and how damaging they can be to people's like psyche. Watching a movie made in 1997 that highlights a problem that in 2023 in J-pop is still extremely prevalent, to the point where like, there's still female idols that have to come out when they get engaged and say, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Yeah. Like, you don't own me. I'm just a singer on a stage. Like, you don't own me.
That's it.
Like that, like hearing that, like just makes me feel like we still have so much work to do to undo some of these parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
And then also the obsession that, even women have with protecting other women that might be going against their own agency. Because even though Mima was being taken advantage of, and she knew that deep down inside, Rumi wasn't going about it the right way to protect her.
No.
She was taking her identity instead of trying to talk to her and help her reclaim herself. It's like, yes, Mima's going along with whatever they're throwing at her because he's telling her, Tadakoro is telling her where to go with her career. Obviously, she's going to listen to this man who's telling her he has more guidance and he knows how to get her famous, even more famous than she already is.
Yeah.
If Rumi really just took her under her wing and said, no, I'm not going to let this man harm you and put you in front of other men who are going to be harmful towards you. Yes. Instead of, putting on a tutu and running around town like,
murdering people.
Murdering people.
Gouging eyes out. Yeah.
I feel like there could have been a better trajectory for Mima, and it seems like Mima got where she was supposed to be, but it sucks that she had to be harmed all those times, even by Rumi, who wanted to protect her. So it's a cautionary tale for all sides. Yes. It's like, if you're a woman, when you're protecting women, you have to make sure what you're doing is protecting them, not what you would want to do so they protect you. If she wants to take her clothes off, let her take her clothes off. That's all I gotta say.
I mean, as long as, in Mima's case, it wasn't this, but as long as, she knows what she's doing and everyone's consenting and all of that. And then
absolutely.
She's completely and wholly okay with it. Then Pop Off says, do what you're going to do. Make that bag.
Get your bag.
So, but, don't go ahead and try to impose your morals onto somebody else because you want them to remain pure for your own entertainment.
Absolutely.
That's not how the world works.
Yep. So that's why I give it 4.5 out of 4.5 out of 5 skulls.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie. It was really head trippy. It was really just a lot to think about. Beautifully animated. Absolutely beautifully animated.
Very well done.
Big ups to all those people that I'm sure toiled over this movie back in 1996 and however long it took them to make this movie. But yeah, so that is our review of Perfect Blue. Bars. So yeah, let us know what you guys think of this movie down in the comments below. If you're listening to us on Spotify, you can always let us know on other platforms. If you guys have seen this movie and if you like it, if it's something you would watch, if it's something you wouldn't watch, just let us know, because it's a pretty good movie, and I'm happy we did a J-horror movie this week.
Yeah.
I'm happy we did that.
It was fun.
Thank you guys so much again for listening to today's episode.
If you like what you hear and are afraid to miss an episode, you can catch us every Wednesday at noon over on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen.
Catch up with us over on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Dial H for Horror Podcast, and feel free to check out our Patreon for exclusive content under the same name. Once again, I've been Shay.
And I've been Gina.
Be safe out there, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Stay spooky.